Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at DayZ's assault rifles and ranking them. And I'm warning everyone right now, I have some strong opinions. Something that I'm going to get out of the way right off the rip is that the FAL is not an assault rifle. In the game, they call it an LAR, but I'm a bit of a gun guy, and sometimes I just call it what it is. The FAL does not shoot an intermediate cartridge. It shoots a full-size rifle caliber round, and commonly in the gun community we'll call this a battle rifle, but battle rifle is kind of a misnomer term, half correct. But anyways, LAR will not be included in this list. It just simply isn't a rifle that shoots an intermediate cartridge.
So what will make the tier list? We're going to be talking about assault rifles. So they need to shoot 5.45, 5.56, maybe the 9x39, those sorts of rifles. And we need them to either have the option to fire fully automatic or at very least burst.
I'm going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. Do the subscribery. And we're getting straight to it. We're going to start out with the short boys. So AKS-74U. This thing sucks. I think a lot of people know that. Recoil is kind of horrendous. I did a whole video about SMGs and how one of those SMGs is potentially better than this gun, if that tells you how bad this gun actually is. Some things to keep in mind: yes, the recoil is bad, and yes, it can be improved. So if you didn't know, you can put any of the AK style buttstocks onto the 74U. There's two variants of a wooden buttstock. There is a reddish colored one, which is commonly found on the AK-74, and there is the light colored wood one. Both of these reduce recoil, the lighter version being the better of the two, decreases the recoil even further. So yes, you can put a buttstock on it and improve the recoil quite a bit, and a heavier mag on this gun. I know it can take a 45 round mag. On some guns, larger mags reduce recoil. This one does not. The only other attachment you can reduce recoil with is the suppressor, the metal AK suppressor. But the problem with that logic is like, if you have access to a metal AK suppressor, you almost definitely have a better gun than this to run. So that, and the bullet velocity is quite low on this gun, making it hard to track moving targets, especially even in close quarters when they're moving side to side. Sometimes things can feel a bit off. Don't use this gun. This is the worst gun on the list. Okay, moving on with our short boy system here. We've got the AUR-A1, and this gun is vastly underrated. I think the problem lies with the fact that it is incredibly hard to find, it seems like, at least on Chernarus, which is most of my playtime experience. People tend to act like this gun is maybe one of the worst on offer, and that's just simply not the case. This gun is better than some guns that are like completely overrated or too highly rated. This gun, for example, and we'll get to the gun I'm getting ready to bash in a second, the AUR-A1 is much better than the KA-74. Much better. In almost every single way, it is better. In every way that matters, it is better. And I'm going to throw the stats up here, and you're going to see just how far superior this gun is. From projectile speed to health damage to shock damage, this gun is better. I get that the ammo is going to be a little harder to come by, but trying to compare the 74 stat-wise versus the AUR-1 is just silly. The AUR-1 takes the cake. That being said, I think this honestly deserves a spot up in like B tier, and I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that. It's quite good. Some people say like they don't like the optic on it, and I guess I hear you on that. I personally don't mind it. This is clearly meant to be a close quarters gun, and I'm sorry, it's better than the 74. There's just no way around it. This gun it's gonna go to B tier.
Okay, our very last short king here. The Vakir rifle. It's part of the VSS platform, or the VSS Venatores, if you're familiar with the platform in real life. These guns shred, and I think people are catching on to the fact that they do shred. There's just some caveats. So I can say this gun's DPS is amongst some of the highest in the game, and we're going to be looking at the stats for the gun running the armor-piercing ammunition, because honestly, if you're using it offensively, that's the ammunition you want to try to run in this gun. The non-armor-piercing variety does not perform nearly as well, but as I've said, the DPS on this is just over 1,000. I think it's 1,125. If that's wrong, I'm throwing the stats up here anyway. I know it's over 1,000 at the very least. So that makes this in close quarters. Again, it is technically one of the best guns in the game as far as damage per second goes. The problem that every gun that is a part of this platform faces is that the base range tends to not be so good. And then beyond that, the 9x39 is a subsonic round and it travels very slowly. So this gun is not meant to be shot at longer ranges. You can kind of tell just by looking at it. But it does lose some points for that. So it's not A, it's not S tier. I can put it comfortably in B tier. And I think if we're going to look at it in B tier, does it go above the AUG? Well, does it go above the AUR A1 is what they call it in the game, right? I think it does, but the huge caveat here is that if you're using this rifle, you need to be using it as a CQB weapon. You really should not be trying to stretch it out to medium to long range. It's not good at that. It's hard to track targets with that very low bullet velocity. It's not meant for that. This thing is meant for inside of a building, shred someone up. It is really quite effective. I think it's underrated, but I think most people are catching on to it. So we're going to put it in B tier. I'm going to put it above the AUR A1, but that's only if you are using it properly. All right, that's all of our short guys. We're going to move on to the KA-74. As I stated earlier, I feel that this gun is entirely overrated. I think that is probably because of its commonality. A lot of people will find it and they'll be able to get it running. A lot of people have a lot of hours with this gun. A lot of people have a lot of time shooting down range with this gun, but it is overrated. Both of the weapons that we have right now in B tier, the Vakir and the lower tier AUR A1, both of those weapons outperform this gun. Like flat out, if you are in a building with someone, or even at a close to medium range, and someone has the AUR A1 or the Vakir, and you've got the 74, and you both start shooting at the same time, the numbers don't lie. You're going to die first. That's just how it is. Okay, the 74. One of the problems that it suffers is the caliber. It shoots 5.45, which is not a great round for piercing armor. Some of the benefits that I guess you could say out of the 74 is like I said, it is going to be more common, but we're talking about, what you have in an ideal scenario. So ideally, you have one of the two guns above this so far. I guess you can put the 45 round mag on it. Okay, I really, mag size doesn't matter in a firefight, at least on DayZ, very much, because you're going to kill them well before you dump a whole 45 rounds into someone. You're generally going to kill them with most guns before dumping 10 rounds. So if you're on target, round count doesn't matter. Where round count helps is if you have multiple targets. But I can tell you the most kills I've ever got, like back to back, was a 1v4, and it was 130 round mag. Okay, so like we're not talking about
you know, your round count isn't going to be a huge factor in like what changes the game. Now you can get the recoil down substantially using the lighter colored buttstocks for the AK platform. So most of the time these spawn in with the red wooden variety, but there's that lighter wooden variety that we talked about back when we talked about the 7.4U. You can get the handguard and the buttstock. You can also put an AK suppressor on this thing. But again, the same logic applies. Like if you have a metal AK suppressor, this is not the gun you want to stick it on, and you probably have something better you can stick it on. Oh, my throat is sore. I've been talking too much. This gun, honestly, it's C tier. It's not anywhere close to the 74U. That gun is actually quite bad, and I think that does belong in F tier. So I can't, in good conscience, put it in D tier. I'm gonna put it in C tier. It can't make it into B tier because these B tier guns that we have right now are far superior. And I can't stress this enough. The numbers don't lie. This gun is a C tier gun at best. Continuing on with another AK, we have the KA 101. This is your 5.56 shooting AK. So this is a pretty interesting gun. It shares a lot of stats, or is at least comparable to another gun on this list. We'll do that gun right after this one. This gun is underrated quite often. I understand it is hard to find mags for this thing a lot. Sometimes the gun itself is hard to find. We're not really talking about that right now. We're talking about, like, in an ideal world, if you have this in your stash, you know, should you pick this over something else? And I think the answer is yeah. This can be picked over a lot of other weapons for a few reasons. So if we're looking at it objectively, this is probably an A tier weapon. And I'll explain my reasoning and I'll throw some stats up here. So if we're comparing it to our B tier so far, the AUR A1, so it does more DPS than that weapon. It also has better base range and it has better projectile speed. Okay, so the AUR A1, it beats that out. The Vakir, it doesn't beat it out in raw DPS, okay, but it does beat it out in shock and health damage, and beats it out projectile speed and damage over range. So it beats out in one way or another both of the guns in B tier, and by default the following tiers below that, it's going to defeat everything there. I've seen people say, I'll pick up a 74 over a KA 101. You're wrong, dude. You're just wrong. And again, it's not even up for debate. We have numbers on these things. If you have the ability to run a KA 101, you got the gun, you got the mag, and maybe a spare mag, you got no excuse. This gun is better than everything we have so far on this list. It's going to the A tier. Okay, we're gonna round out the AK family here and finish off with the AKM. Very comparable to the 101. But did you know that the KA 101 actually does more health damage than the KAM by a very marginal amount? The KA 101 does do more health damage. However, the KAM does more shock. I think it's like 107 shock. So it ends up having a slightly higher DPS than the KA 101, but only slightly. It's actually like a negligible amount. Once again, I'll pull up the stats for this. Where the AKM excels is round capacity. Obviously, you've got a 75 round drum. Do you really need that in a gunfight? No, honestly, it's excessive at that point. Where this gun excels is it has some multi-tool capability, right? I mean, you can reduce the recoil down with the light colored buttstocks for the AKs. You can put a suppressor on it. The ammo is really, really common just all throughout the map. Hunting locations, the 7.62 by 39, you find it just in farms, villages. It's freaking everywhere. So it's very reliable to carry around and to use regularly. And like I said, DPS wise, like it is just slightly faster DPS than the 101. And really that should sell you on the idea of how underrated the 101 is. An interesting fact about the KAM, the AKM, that's what we're talking about. Call it whatever you want. Interesting fact is its bullet velocity is not very good. The KA 101 is a much better gun for shooting players like mid to long range because the projectile speed is much better on the 101. But the KAM's multi-use role that it has, how economical it is with the commonality of the ammo is a little too hard to ignore. That and like I said, that round capacity for raiding bases, it's one of like the go-to weapons. And my gosh, if you're on a community server where you have access to like the different colored AK attachments, like my community server, you can make this thing look so good. We're gonna bring up the new scope, the PSO6, I believe it's called, which is kind of like the marksman style, you know, has the most enhanced zoom out of all of the scopes. And yes, you can put that on the KAM. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not really suited for long range shots because of that projectile speed. If you were gonna try to make like a marksman style AK, the 101 would be a better choice. But because these two are so similar and the AKM just barely wins out with some DPS, and some of, you know, the bonuses like how economical it is, I'm gonna put, it's gonna go A tier. It's not on par with our S tier weapons as far as performance, but it is just ever so slightly better than the 101. And we're going to wrap back around and finish off the VSS, the Vakir platform. So you have the ASVAL and the VSS, and there's really no point in pulling up the stats here because they are just marginally better than the Vicar. They are both integrally suppressed, so they're going to get bonus points for that. The projectile speed is a little bit better just because of the longer barrel. I think it should be a lot better, but it's really just by a marginal amount that these bullets travel a little bit faster, but they're still incredibly slow. I know the VSS is often talked about like a marksman rifle or a sniper rifle, and it's just not that. It doesn't work like that in the game. It just doesn't hit hard enough compared to other sniper rifles. It's an assault rifle. They're really, this whole platform is best used close up. I'm going to put the VSS in B tier above all of our current B tier items, and then the ASVAL I'm going to put in A tier purely because it can take the American style optics, and then it also will accept the new super duper awesome scope. So you could potentially shoot it at long range if you zero the rifle, but the second your target starts moving, the odds of you being able to hit them are incredibly slim. But still, if you've got AP rounds in an ASVAL, then it is a very competent weapon. I'm gonna just put it at the bottom of A tier, but it's really not much better than the other two on offer. It's just the scopes give it some versatility. It might be a good like town clearer if you're just clearing zombies out. You know, you could pop some from a distance before you enter the town, but honestly, you shouldn't really be shooting zombies anyway. You know what? I'm rethinking this. I think all of them honestly belong in B tier. So ASVAL will be at the top of B tier for now. Something I want to point out just very quickly. So the ASVAL, the VSS, and the Vakir, they have higher DPS than everything in A tier and everything in B tier. They just lack versatility at longer ranges. They're not good at that. The AS Val sits at the top of B. We're going to keep it there because of the fact that it can take those nice optics. But you really shouldn't be stretching these guns out at range. So if you don't have an optic, the VSS would be a better choice because the iron sights are pretty darn good. I like the iron sights on the VSS. But these guys just, if they had a faster bullet velocity and had just a better base range, these could be like A tier. They could even be S tier weapons, but it's that bullet velocity is a huge deal, and it's going to be a huge deal for a lot of players. And honestly, there's a lot of players that are going to pick this gun up and try to shoot it at range, which you shouldn't do. So it kind of comes down to the user with these guns. They have extremely high DPS. They're over 1,000. So in a closed room, these beat everything in A and B tier. But it's kind of on the user to make sure they're using it properly, so there's less margin for error. And I think because there is less margin for error with these guns, like you have to know what you're doing and be using them appropriately. I'm just gonna keep them in B tier, AS Val at the top, VSS behind that, and then we'll do the Vakir rifle behind that one, because that one can't be suppressed, so it loses points. All right, so we need to get a gun up in S tier. We're gonna go ahead and knock out the FAMAS. The FAMAS is S tier. The thing about the FAMAS is, again, it requires kind of a dedicated and experienced user or someone who's willing to use the gun within its role. So this is a gun that needs to be used close to like medium close range. It is the fastest killing weapon in the game. It shares the high end of damage per second. It's fastest DPS, fire rate's 900. That is the maximum. A lot of other guns on this list share that maximum, but because of the health and shock damage that the FAMAS does, it is the fastest killing weapon. It also has a 25 round mag though, okay? And you need to saw off the carry handle for it to be kind of user friendly to aim down sights. So this is gonna be S tier, and it's kind of up to the skill of the player to use this thing in the right way. This will be our bottom S tier pick, but I want everyone to know this is the fastest killing gun in the game, and I think a lot of people know that, but a lot of people will pick different guns over this gun. It can't take any sort of military suppressor, and because the rounds per minute are so fast, a 25 round mag requires you to be very accurate with your shots, especially if you're dealing with multiple targets. You need to get your rounds on target very quickly because like you're gonna burn through that 25 rounds. But it's an S tier gun. It is the fastest killing gun in the game. All right, so M16, I've been putting this one off for a little bit. I'm gonna hurt some feelings here. The M16 is better than both the AKM and the KA101. I'm sorry, I'm not the one who decided this. This is just how it is. The problem with the M16 is that people tend to not like the iron sights on it. The iron sights, for me, I like. It has a narrow front post, which means I can be pinpoint accurate. To get these numbers out of the M16 though, you need to be firing it in burst. You need to be very confident and understand what this weapon is capable of. It on paper is better. It's got a higher DPS, does more health damage than these guns. It's better. It's really just a user error. it has to go A tier. Like, it can't just be B or C tier because you're not good with it, or the average player isn't good with it. It is on paper better than both of these guns. The recoil, you can get the recoil down a little bit, although I'll say the recoil by itself is already better than the KAM and the 101 at base. Throw a 60 round on there, you can get a small recoil reduction. Throw a suppressor on there, you can get an even further recoil reduction. This thing's A tier. And not only is it A tier, it's the top of A tier. Pick one up, get used to it. It's good. Okay, final two, I believe. I'll go back and double check, but I think we're final two. Whew! Are we done yet? I am tired of talking. We're going to look at these two guns together, the M4A1 and the high-end Augie. These two guys are going to be S tier, and it wouldn't really be fair to put one over the other. With the introduction of the new longer range scope for these guys, these can be used like in like almost a multi-tool type of way, what I call the one gun philosophy, where you have one gun that can kind of just do it all. However, the thing that I would like to point out is that if you're gonna pick one of these guns and put that sniper optic onto it, the AUG is much better suited for that role because of the bullet velocity. The bullet velocity on the AUG is insanely high, whereas the M4 is, well, it's just not even close as far as the bullet velocity goes. These are both astounding guns. The M4 is going to be better in close quarters. It's going to have a higher DPS and just plainly because of the fire rate. But over range, the AUG is much, much better. I'll throw up the stats here, and we can see what I'm talking about. Projectile speed 850 on the AUG. That's insane. That competes with certain sniper rifles in the game. So this is a great gun for tracking players like mid to long range, and you can just tippy tap them down with that new optic. That makes the AUG a lot more versatile than it was before. It is more of a multi-tool than the M4 is a multi-tool, but these are both great guns for different reasons. Neither is above the other, but these are our last guns, and they are our S tier picks. The best two assault rifles in the game by a large margin. Whew! Thank you all for watching, sticking around to the end. I really appreciate it. Make sure you do that like, comment, and subscribe. Hey, real quick, I have a community server on PlayStation. It's kind of like official with some rebalanced loot. We locked up some of the best items and guns in the game behind a little quest line. It's a lot of fun. We've got unlimited stamina, long days, short nights. Short nights. This is an official style server, so it's kind of PvP, PvE, depends on the player. I'd love to see you over there. It's called Official Premium, all caps. Search it. PlayStation only. I think our server is out of the New York region. That's all I got, guys. This was a doozy. I wanted and didn't want to do this one, but there it is. There's a lot of surprises in here. I might go pick up my M16, man. That thing is pretty darn good. Very underrated. Hey, I'll see you guys next time. I'm out of here.